Platoon won the Oscar for its brutal depiction of war, but the lives of the actors afterward became even more real and infinitely more ruthless. Some fell to drugs, others lost everything in divorce, and some passed away in silence, unnoticed. Looking back at the cast today, you'll be shocked by what they've become. Let's explore the reasons why and pay tribute to the legacies they left behind. Let's dive in. Francesco Quinn as Ra. When he was 23 years old, Francesco Quinn portrayed Ra in Platoon, 1986, a battle-hardened soldier ready to face death to protect his comrades. This role wasn't just a milestone in his young career, it was a declaration. Francesco was not merely living in the shadow of his legendary father, Anthony Quinn. With a piercing stare and a mysterious presence, Ra resembled a ghost of the jungle, loyal yet haunting. But when the cameras stopped rolling, Francesco's real life unfolded like a quiet tragedy, one no one could have foreseen. Born on March 22, 1963 in Rome, Italy, Francesco Daniele Quinn was the firstborn son of cinematic icon Anthony Quinn and costume designer Iolanda Adalori. He grew up surrounded by film sets, emotional distance, and the heavy expectations of a famous family. Still, Francesco always felt like an outsider, burdened by the name Quinn. A broken marriage, estranged children, and roles that faded between the frames. All of it suffocated a man who once longed to rise from his father's magnificent shadow. He acted alongside Anthony Quinn, he replaced Anthony Quinn, and ultimately, he never escaped Anthony Quinn. Despite appearances in a range of television and film productions, from 24 to Transformers, Dark of the Moon, the spotlight never truly belonged to him. On August 5, 2011, when he was 48 years old, Francesco Quinn collapsed on a coastal street in Malibu while jogging with his children. A heart attack abruptly ended his unfinished journey. His estimated net worth was only about $1 million, modest compared to the legacy people once expected of him. But perhaps the most heartbreaking and beautiful image is that final moment. A father, an artist, collapsing not in a film but in real life, quietly, just like the character Ra he once brought to life. You'd never recognize until it was too late. Charlie Sheen as Chris Taylor. When he was 21 years old, Charlie Sheen took part in Platoon, 1986, in the role of Chris Taylor, a young and naive rookie who voluntarily joins the war in Vietnam, only to gradually witness the collapse of human morality on the bloody battlefield. Unlike the typical heroic portrayals, Sheen's character exposed the harsh descent into emotional ruin, and that's what made it so haunting for viewers. But few could have guessed that the inner turmoil on screen was only a prelude to the real-life tragedies that followed. Carlos Erwin Estevez, born on September 3, 1965 in New York City, was the youngest son of actor Martin Sheen. He was raised in Malibu, California, in an artistic family and quickly showed talent and passion for acting. But along with the spotlight, Charlie also quickly ventured into darker territory. Expelled from school for laziness, early drug addiction, entanglements in multiple sex scandals with porn stars, firearms, assaults, and even rape accusations. His personal life became a string of scandals. 3 failed marriages, children born into chaos, multiple arrests, and a media firestorm when he announced he was HIV positive in 2015, a revelation that stunned the world. At the peak of his career, Sheen was once the highest-paid television actor in the world, but his addiction and reckless lifestyle ultimately turned him from a star into a cautionary tale of downfall. In 2025, Charlie Sheen is 60 years old. He lives quietly in Malibu, occasionally appearing in small TV projects, but the spotlight of his past is long gone. His estimated net worth is about $10 million, a figure that once would have been a mere tip for a star who used to earn $1.8 million per episode for 2.5 Men. People still spot him strolling along the beach, wearing a cap and dark glasses, trying to preserve a shred of privacy in a world that once adored him, then turned away. Johnny Depp as Lerner. Johnny Depp made his film debut playing Lerner in Platoon, 1986, a young, quiet, and sensitive Jewish soldier surrounded by bloodshed, when he was 23 years old. Though a small role, it carried great emotional weight, serving as a humanitarian and anti-war voice amid the madness of the Vietnam War. From Lerner's eyes, people already saw the explosive potential of a rising talent, and just a few years later, Depp became a global icon. The journey from Lerner to the legendary Jack Sparrow, however, was a long path paved with loss and pain. Depp entered the glitz of Hollywood as a dreamer, but then plummeted into a vortex of addiction, depression, and unfulfilled romances. His brief but tumultuous marriage to Amber Heard turned his life into a global courtroom spectacle, where his career, reputation, and even his character were ripped apart piece by piece. The audio recordings, bruises, and accusations became inseparable from the name Johnny Depp. He once said, "I'm not playing a role anymore. I'm living in the role of being accused." After the historic lawsuit in 2022, Johnny won a legal victory, but at the cost of mental, financial, and reputational exhaustion. Studios turned their backs. Roles were cut. His private life fell into emptiness. He withdrew into a reclusive life in France, focusing on music and painting as a way to heal wounds that money could never mend. As of 2025, Johnny Depp is 62 years old. Though his net worth once peaked at over $650 million, legal battles, lawsuits, poor financial management, and the enormous costs of marriage left him with only about $150 million. But perhaps the true value isn't in the number. It's in the fact that he's still standing, a survivor. Tom Behringer as Sergeant Barnes. Tom Behringer was 37 years old when he appeared in Platoon, 1986, as Sergeant Barnes, a brutal soldier, scarred both physically and emotionally, leading his platoon through the nightmare of the Vietnamese jungle. His cold face and deadly eyes became symbols of war and lost humanity. This role didn't just elevate Behringer to the heights of Hollywood, but behind the dark sunglasses and the rifle was a man running from his own past. Born on May 31, 1949 in Chicago, Illinois, Thomas Michael Moore, later known as Tom Behringer, grew up in a strict Catholic family. Once dreaming of becoming a priest, he instead turned toward the arts, caught in confusion and internal conflict. In the early years of his career, he worked as a hotel clerk and flight attendant, struggling through minor roles and financial insecurity. His true breakthrough came with Platoon, but the spotlight also revealed the cracks in his soul, cracks he could never mend, even decades later. Behringer's private life was far from peaceful. He went through 3 failed marriages, fathered 6 children with 3 different women, and spent countless years adrift between fame and reality. Those close to him described him as reserved, irritable, and often speaking of a sense of being lost. After his divorces, he never revealed much, simply saying, "I'm not easy to be around." Though he was never publicly involved in substance abuse scandals, his face noticeably changed over the years, fueling rumors of botched plastic surgery, depression, and prolonged loneliness. He reached the peak of cinema, but deep inside, he remained a Catholic boy burdened by unresolved inner turmoil. Currently, Tom Behringer is 76 years old, living quietly with his 4th wife in South Carolina. He no longer appears frequently, only taking roles in independent films or small projects, sometimes as quiet supporting characters, reflecting the way he has chosen to live after the spotlight. His estimated net worth is about $4 million, modest compared to his contemporaries, but enough for him to live peacefully in the shadows, far from Hollywood's glitz and noise. Todd as Warren. When he appeared in Platoon, 1986, Todd was 31 years old, playing the role of Warren, a calm but resilient soldier, someone his comrades could trust in the hell of the Vietnam War. With his tall frame and a thunderous, deep voice, Tony told the story himself. But behind that seemingly steady character was a soul that endured Hollywood's bitter silence for decades. Despite possessing rare talent and formal training, Tony Todd spent his career struggling under the invisible weight of bias, a black man constantly relegated to supporting roles, strange characters, or tormented spirits that never found peace. Hollywood admired his voice but was afraid to place him at the center. Behind the glitz was a cycle of repeated roles, silent rejections, and endless auditions that went unanswered. In his personal life, Todd married Fatima Cortez, but the marriage couldn't survive the pressure of fame and accumulated loneliness. He lived withdrawn, rarely opened up, and when he lost a close family member in the early 2000s, Tony fell into a profound silence, a nameless depression that clung to him over the years. For many years, he lived alone in a house near the sea, writing journals, reading scripts, and only truly living when on a film set, where he didn't have to explain why he was always sad. On November 6, 2024, Tony Todd drew his final breath at his home in Marina del Rey after a long battle with stomach cancer, a disease he kept hidden throughout the filming of Final Destination. Bloodlines. In his final scene, he requested to ad-lib one line as a farewell. "Life is precious. Enjoy every second. You never know when it ends." He passed away quietly, without fanfare, leaving behind 2 children and a career marked by scars. His net worth at the time of death was only about $3 million, a modest figure compared to the artistic depth and influence he gave. But perhaps the most heartbreaking thing is that, despite walking through so many supernatural worlds, Tony Todd in real life never truly escaped profound loneliness. Willem Dafoe as Sergeant Elias. Willem Dafoe was 31 years old when he portrayed one of the most haunting characters in war cinema, Sergeant Elias in Platoon, 1986. As the moral compass amid the swamp of brutality, Elias represented not only compassion, but also the image of a solitary soul consumed by war, just like Dafoe himself, who carried emotional complexity throughout his career. But that spotlight never came without a price. After rising to fame through Platoon, Willem Dafoe plunged into art house films and deeply challenging roles, from Jesus in The Last Temptation of Christ to a madman in Antichrist. Yet behind the lights was a man who constantly felt estranged from himself. He once said that fame didn't make him feel stronger, it made him feel more lost. His decades-long relationship with Elizabeth Lecomte, the mother of his son, never led to marriage, as both believed that marriage is a form of control. So when love fractured, there was no divorce, just a quiet departure from each other's lives. And Dafoe did just that, silently, without lawsuits, without headlines. When he met Giada Colagrande, an Italian director, his life shifted again. One lunch, one question. "Do you want to marry me tomorrow?" And they wed the very next day, with just 2 witnesses. They split their life between New York and Rome, making films together, keeping the outside world at a distance. Yet even in happiness, Dafoe admitted he wasn't easy to love, nor to live with. The pressures of artistry, his obsession with characters, and a complex inner life led him to constantly retreat into yoga, meditation, or the darkest roles, where he felt most alive. At 69 years old, Willem Dafoe continues to push the boundaries of cinema with complex, layered performances, living between New York and Rome, often retreating to quiet rooms to practice yoga and write scripts. Though he holds an estimated net worth of $40 million, earned from hundreds of roles spanning over 4 decades, Dafoe continues to live simply and mindfully. Keith David as King. When he appeared in Platoon 1986, Keith David was 30 years old, playing King, a calm and quiet soldier who remained a spiritual anchor amid the hell of the Vietnam War. Although not a central character, Keith's deep, warm voice and sharp gaze breathed life into every line of dialogue, turning a supporting role into a lasting impression. It was the beginning of a journey that would span more than 40 tireless years, led by a voice audiences would never forget. Born on June 4, 1956, in Harlem, New York, Keith David was raised in Corona, Queens, in a working-class African-American family. His father worked in payroll, and his mother was a manager at the phone company. From a young age, he was drawn to the performing arts, especially after playing the Cowardly Lion in a school production of The Wizard of Oz. That passion led him to the High School of Performing Arts in Manhattan, and then to the prestigious Juilliard School, where he graduated in 1979. But the stage lights were only a small part of his life. The rest was a long grind through theater, film, animation, and video games, filled with countless nameless roles and lonely road trips across America. His love for the craft lifted Keith up, but also cost him many things. He went through 2 failed marriages. The first left him with a son he rarely saw, the second with 2 daughters, though that too eventually ended. In one interview, he shared that although he had explored many faiths, Catholicism, Episcopalianism, Baptist traditions, in the end, he chose to believe in spirit, not structure. On lonely nights after packed schedules, he often returned to Psalm 116, a Bible passage about gratitude and redemption. "I'm not religious," he once said in that familiar deep voice, "but I believe in God and in forgiveness. On screen and off, I'm still learning not to grow bitter." At 69 years old, Keith David still hasn't stopped. He continues working on film, television, and voiceover projects, from Has-Been Hotel and Rick and Morty to Destiny 2. With over 400 roles across more than 4 decades, he's the kind of artist who never needed to be a cover star to be respected throughout the industry. His current estimated net worth is around $5 million, a modest figure compared to the scale of his work, but a fitting reward for a life of resilience. In 2026, he will receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a long overdue but deeply meaningful honor. You'd never recognize the heartbreak behind the voice. Mark Moses as Lieutenant Wolf. In 1986, when he was 28 years old, Mark Moses portrayed Lieutenant Wolf in Platoon, a young officer fresh out of training, not yet ready for the full brutality of war. Through every trembling glance and choked line amid gunfire, Moses convincingly portrayed a commander powerless in the face of battlefield horror. This role caught the attention of director Oliver Stone, opening the door to a long career that followed. Born on February 24, 1958 in New York City, Moses had once been the captain of his high school football team, but gave up sports to pursue literature, and later, theater. After wandering through different places and phases, he found his purpose under the stage lights. His personal life, however, wasn't as steady as his characters. His marriage to actress Lisa was once considered one of Hollywood's solid unions, but it ended quietly. After the divorce, Moses went through periods of psychological crisis, anxiety, and an enduring sense of isolation that followed him for years. As of 2025, Mark Moses is 66 years old. Though no longer a box office draw, he continues to appear in memorable supporting roles on television, in series like The Last Ship, Homeland, and La Reina del Sur. He lives more privately now, away from red carpets and flashing lights. His estimated net worth is about $2 million, a modest figure compared to other stars of his generation. Forest Whitaker as Big Herald. Forest Whitaker was 25 years old when he appeared in Platoon, 1986, as Big Herald, a gentle soldier quietly fighting to preserve his humanity amid the blood-soaked battlefield. The role wasn't full of lines or glamour, but it was filled with unspoken emotion, reflecting who he truly was, deep, introspective, and always confronting the world with a gaze full of contemplation. Born on July 15, 1961, in Longview, Texas, Forrest grew up in a modest African-American family. His mother was a special education teacher, and his father worked in insurance. The boy with the drooping eyelid once dreamed of becoming an opera singer before a back injury forced him to give up a football scholarship. It was as if destiny redirected him toward acting. Starting with poetic plays at school, then a relentless journey through Palisades, Juilliard, USC, and finally Cannes, where he won Best Actor in 1988. But behind the spotlight, he remained a boy who felt self-conscious about his appearance, always sensing that he was different, from his voice to his gaze. His career led him to an Oscar for The Last King of Scotland, 2006. But his personal life grew increasingly fractured. His 22-year marriage to Keisha Nash, his co-star in Blown Away, was once a rare haven of peace for him. They shared 4 children, both biological and step, but in 2018, Forrest quietly filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. During those years, he fell into depression and turned to yoga and martial arts to stay grounded. Now, at 63 years old, Forrest Whitaker continues to contribute both on-screen and through humanitarian work. He is a UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador, founder of the peace-building organization WPDI, and stars in the series Godfather of Harlem. His net worth is estimated at around $30 million, not just from film, but also from investments in NBA Africa and community initiatives. He's no longer Big Herald from that war-torn field, but those eyes still carry a life full of ups and downs. Kevin Dillon as Bunny. At 21 years old, Kevin Dillon appeared in Platoon, 1986, playing Bunny, a savage, unhinged American soldier spiraling deeper into dehumanization amid the chaos of the Vietnam War. The performance was shocking, not just for its violence, but for Bunny's eyes, where fear and cruelty coexisted in one body. With a youthful face but intense acting, Dillon became one of the film's most unforgettable figures. Born on August 19, 1965, in New Rochelle, New York, Kevin is the younger brother of actor Matt Dillon and a distant relative of comic legend Alex Raymond. Growing up in an artistic family, Dillon entered Hollywood early, but fame came at a steep cost. He struggled with addiction, a downward spiral that seriously impacted both his career and personal life. His marriage to actress Jane Stewart ended after over a decade, leaving behind 2 children and a divorce settlement of more than $1.7 million. Dillon once bitterly admitted that he felt devoured by Hollywood, as if Bunny had never truly left him. In 2025, Kevin Dillon is 59 years old. Though no longer at his peak, he continues to appear in small film and television projects, living more quietly but never disappearing. His net worth is estimated at around $10 million, a figure just enough for a career filled with ups and downs. In the minds of audiences, Dillon will forever be Bunny, a wild soul in war, and a man once lost in the dazzling yet lonely world of Hollywood. Cory Glover as Francis. At 21 years old, Cory Glover made his mark on cinema history as Francis in Platoon, 1986, a young soldier, somewhat naive, idealizing war, only to gradually collapse in silence under the brutality of the Vietnam battlefield. Not a loud character, Francis, portrayed by Glover, carried an incredible emotional depth. A bewildered gaze, simmering fear, and bitter awakening turned what seemed like a minor role into a deeply human voice amid the madness of war. Few knew that behind that look was a singer on the rise, about to shake the world of rock music. Born on November 6, 1964 in Brooklyn, New York, Cory originally pursued acting, but destiny shifted course when Vernon Reid discovered him singing Happy Birthday at a friend's party and invited him to be the lead vocalist for the band Living Colour. His music career skyrocketed with the hit Cult of Personality, but from that point, Cory began battling himself. The pressure of fame, media expectations, and endless tours led him into prolonged mental crisis. He divorced, became estranged from his child, and once admitted, I didn't recognize the man in the mirror anymore. Glover wrestled between religious faith and the temptations of an artist's life. He played Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar, a metaphor for his own life, torn between light and darkness. As of 2025, Cory Glover is 60 years old. He still performs with living color, still burns with passion on stage, even if no longer at his peak. His net worth is estimated at around $3 million, but the greatest value he carries is survival, beyond fame, beyond breakdown, beyond heartbreak. The singer who once hesitated between acting and music now stands firm in one role, his true self. And perhaps the most memorable image isn't from a film or a concert, but him standing in a crowd, gaze calm, like someone who walked through hell and chose to sing his way back. John C. McInley as Sergeant ONeal. John C. McInley portrayed Sergeant Red ONeal in the Oscar-winning Platoon, 1986, a cynical, opportunistic soldier who constantly sought to avoid combat and survive through cunning rather than courage when he was 27 years old. Though not a lead role, his character was a crucial piece, reflecting the moral decay and shattered ideals of the Vietnam War. With his sly eyes and cold delivery, McInley made the audience both despise and remain captivated by him. Born on August 3, 1959, in Greenwich Village, New York, John grew up in a family of 5 children, his father a stockbroker, his mother a school teacher. His childhood was wrapped in high expectations and a youth that never truly felt heard. After graduating from NYU Tisch, he began a difficult acting journey. But behind the spotlight were private pains never fully revealed. His first marriage to Lauren Lambert ended just a few years later, after their son Max was born with Down syndrome. The burden of being a father to a special needs child, combined with the unforgiving pace of the entertainment industry, led McInley into depression, a darkness he once described as silent, persistent, and without escape. As of 2025, John C. McInley is 65 years old, still living in Malibu, and active in both film and disability rights advocacy. His net worth is estimated at around $12 million. But what the public remembers most isn't just his roles, but the moment he hugged his son Max at the Special Olympics Stadium, whispering, "I'm proud of you, not for winning a medal, but because you never gave up." A simple, heartfelt moment, reminding us that sometimes the toughest men on screen carry the softest hearts in real life. All these years later, the battlefield of Platoon is no longer just a cinematic memory. It has soaked into the very lives of each actor. Have you recognized them? Or are they now just unfamiliar faces from a distant past? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow for even more shocking stories behind Hollywood's spotlight.